Greetings, Dr. Naguzi. Can you hear me? I cannot hear you. Let me check why. Seems to be a problem with speakers. Okay.
Can you hear
Uh,
me? Can you hear me?
yes. How are you, Dr. Naguzi? Now I can hear you.
I'm doing okay. And you?
I'm fine. What time is it there?
11:01.
Okay. So I hope you will not be busy today.
Let's say I can devote 1.5 hours to 2 hours.
Okay, okay. First of all, thank you so much for giving us your time. And lots of people wants to join us today. So we are just giving, 5 minutes so that everybody can join us.
All right, that's fine.
How's the weather there?
Cold, girl. My jacket is there. It's
Oh,
cold.
it's cold.
It's really cold.
So currently you are in which country?
I'm in the UK.
Okay, so you are currently in UK. Yeah, it would
Yeah,
be very cold there.
yeah, it's very cold. I moved to the UK October 2022.
Okay, okay,
I moved from
1992.
Nigeria to the UK. Yeah.
Okay. So that is the same year of my birth as well,
Ah, wow.
1992.
That's nice.
Okay, so I guess without waiting any further, let me introduce our distinguished guest with all our participants here. I'm Dr. Aribah Aslam. You know me if you have attended all my sessions, so I would not go towards my introduction. We have today with us our distinguished guest, Dr. Naguzi. I'm not saying the right name, the full name, because I don't know how to pronounce it, to be very
Ngozi.
Nagozi.
Ngozi.
Dr. Bos, can you just say it for me once?
Just say Dr. Ngozi. Ngozi.
Angozi. Okay. So
Correct. That's correct. Dr. Ngozi.
So we have today with us Dr. Angozi, who has played
Correct.
an instrumental role in empowering the students with statistical and econometric knowledge. Dr. Nagozi is an accomplished economist, academic, and the fame of Dr. Nagozi is much connected with CrunchEconometrix. CrunchEconometrix is basically a global platform which is in very, if I want to tell you what is CrunchEconometrix, it is basically an academy for all the econometricians, for all the students to learn economics and econometrics, particularly in a very easier and simplified way. So with a stellar academic background, she has around 50 high impact factor publications, and the platform of CrunchEconometrix has around 25,000 YouTube subscribers. Her teachings, her videos, and her research is indeed remarkable. And today's discussion would be focusing on learning from Dr. Nagozi, particularly in the realm of econometrics, and what are the high demand techniques he will be telling us. So before we get started with our discussion, thank you, Dr. Nagozi, again for your time. It's wonderful to have you on our platform.
Thanks for having me, Doc. Thank you so much.
So I think let's get started. Okay, so I would connect a little bit with my experience. It is back, in 2019 when I was doing my PhD. And when I was doing my PhD, I'll be very honest. I was suffering to understand, the GMM method. Okay, so these were the years when I was a student, and I searched over the internet. I searched over, so many books, but I wasn't unable to get to the right command. And at that time, I saw a video of CrunchEconometrix, which helped me a great deal, to get started with my work. So, Dr. Nagozi, you do have a contribution in my PhD as well. So, in that way, you are my teacher as well. So, thank you again for helping me in those times you don't know. I'm just one case, and there might be many people throughout the globe whom you are touching and helping them. And may you be rewarded for your services. My
Thank you
first
so much.
question, can you share the inspiring story of how CrunchEconometrix came to life? And obviously, you might, hear stories just like you heard my story today,
Yeah.
and how it is impacting, the econometricians globally.
Thank you so much. CrunchEconometrix actually came about um, due to my passion to teach. And I realized the gap in the field of economics when it comes to that branch called econometrics. Remember that econometrics is a blend of economic theory, statistics, and mathematics. And you will agree with me, when it comes to statistics and mathematics, students are not friends with those two angles. They can still tolerate economic theory because it's theory. They can read it and write it. But when it comes to quantitativeness, students often have a challenge. Personally, when I was at University of Sussex for my second master's, I failed the econometrics module in the first semester. I failed woefully the econometrics module I'm teaching today. It was an F. I scored an F because I was coming from, I just left the banking system. I was a 12-year career banker. So I was coming from the banking system into academics. So I had a 12 years gap of no clue about where econometrics was going. So I failed. But by the second semester, due to the professor that taught me in a very simple way, he was able to reduce all the jargons, and I moved from an F to an A, second semester. And I told myself, I'm not going back to the banking system ever. I'm going to academia. And if I happen to find myself in academia, I will teach econometrics to the world. As at that time, I didn't know how. I'm talking about 2014. I didn't know how. But when I moved back to Nigeria from the UK and I joined Covenant University, I began my PhD 2015. And in 2018, January, I started CrunchEconometrix. That was the third year of my PhD program. And the only subject that came to my mind to teach was econometrics, because I knew students have phobia, anxiety, fear about that particular topic, that particular subject. So I said to myself, I'm going to teach it in a way that it will be as if you are crunching biscuits. So I came about the name CrunchEconometrix. And I always tell people, econometrics is not as difficult as it seems. The name may be scary, but once you can understand the fundamentals, it's about the easiest branch of economics. So January 2018, I began CrunchEconometrix to teach undergraduates. That was my focus, to teach undergraduates. But over time, I had master students, I have PhD students, I have researchers across all levels. I had professors. I was shocked. I was shocked. It was then I realized that, come on, a lot of people are actually having gap in knowledge when it comes to empirical techniques. And I was very happy filling that gap. I respond to queries. Whenever you ask me a question, if I don't know it, I go back to my notes. So the more I teach you, the more I learn. So that was why I just stayed on course. I mean, it was just a rugged determination to teach, nothing more. I was just determined to teach that student out there in that country. I was just determined to teach and pass the message that anybody can pass econometrics. Anybody can. Anybody can analyze this data. I tell people, if you can watch my videos, you can analyze your data 80% of the time without calling for help. And I meant it. So that is the success story of how CrunchEconometrix came about.
So, and then CrunchEconometrix went to 25,000 plus subscribers and having a global audience. So, would you like to share any challenges that you face in building the CrunchEconometrix? Because I see it's not actually very easy, to spend a time, because we academicians and, when we are, post PhD era, the one thing that we all are, facing is time constraints. So
Correct.
this is one of the challenges that I myself face. I would like to know what are the challenges that you faced while building the global platform of Crunch Econometrics.
You will agree with me that academic niche is very boring. Academic videos can be very boring. An average individual would rather watch an entertainment video because entertainment keeps you relaxed, but academics keeps you on edge. So how do you break through and keep people glued to your screen listening to you? I said to myself, Ngozi, you have to be clear, number one. When you speak, when you teach, people don't need to use earpiece to hear you. You need to be clear as day. I was not going to negotiate clarity. That was key. Number two, you need to try your best to remove econometric jargons. And if you can't avoid that jargon, explain what it means so that a layman on the streets can understand what it means. Number three, make sure that your videos are clear as much as you can. Whatever gadget you are going to use, make sure your videos are clear such that your viewers will not have to squint their eyes to look at your screen. Make sure they can see every letter on your screen. Those were my catch niches to keep my subscribers glued. And I began sharing my work, first of all, on my CrunchEconometrix Facebook page and on my own personal Facebook account. Then I moved on to Twitter. I opened CrunchEconometrix Twitter. So I was posting on Twitter. I was posting on my personal Twitter account. People gave me the benefit of the doubt. They were shocked. You're a woman. I said, yes. You're Nigerian. I said, yes. And you are teaching econometrics? I said, yes. How do you do those things? I said, I read. What books do you read? I said, I read Gujarati, Basic Econometrics. I use Woodridge, Introductory Econometrics. Those are my two textbooks. I don't joke with them. I read them. And they'll ask, and you teach as if you are eating pizza. I said, yes, that is the idea. I want you to know that econometrics is not as scary as it seems. So over time, people began to share my videos on my behalf. As of today, I have 36,360 subscribers. All of them organically grown. I never bought any subscriber. There was no need. I knew my work would speak for itself. I knew. Because I gave subscribers and viewers the chance to send me topics that they are struggling with. So I was able to penetrate. So for instance, if you post on my comment section, how do I interpret this result? Then I know students are struggling with results interpretation. So I put it down on my jotter. My next video will be on results interpretation. If you put a comment on my channel and you say, how do I know the correlation coefficients? Or how do I know if there's multicollinearity? Then I know students are struggling with dealing with multicollinearity. I pen it down. So my feedback was coming from my platform. The videos I create are not in any particular order. I create those videos to satisfy students' needs. If you are doing your final year dissertation, you have to do summary statistics. You have to do collinearity analysis. You have to get your results and interpret. Those three are germane, whether you are undergraduate or postgraduate, or maybe you're even writing a research article. So I know you will need my video to interpret summary statistics. You will need my video to break down correlation analysis. You will need my video to interpret your results. If I give you a generic results interpretation, you can apply it to your own results. So I was able to build confidence. I was able to show students I know what I'm teaching. So over time, I had over, it became a household name. And honestly, is speechless. I think October, YouTube sent me a notification. My channel has 4.5 million views as at October 2024. I mean, it's mind-blowing. The kind of feedback I get inspires me to do more. Before I can do a video, sometimes I read 4 to 5 articles. No joke. I read articles as if I'm going for an examination because I need you to watch my video without asking questions. I need you to watch my video, load your data, and just listen to what I'm doing and be analyzing your data without any other person's assistance. Even if you need another person's assistance, maybe just 20%, 80% you did it yourself by just watching my video. I tell people, just watch and do as I do. That's all. So that's my success story. I give God glory, honestly. I give God praise.
It is very interesting. And, I can feel the happiness inside you when you are telling about your challenges, the story of a Crunch Econometrics. Now, I will come up with another question, and that is regarding machine learning, which is growing popularity like anything. So, usually the young researchers, my question would be that how can researchers strike a balance between traditional econometric methods and machine learning approaches?
It depends on the researcher's scope of study, area of study, and whether there is any need for predictive analysis. You and I know that traditional econometrics majorly focuses on causal relationship, impact of one variable X on Y. Along the line, you can also use that traditional econometrics for predictive analysis. But machine learning, on the other hand, majorly focuses on predictability of the model. So over time, researchers are now having hybrid of both models, of both techniques. So you can have, I put something down here. For instance, anybody that wants to blend traditional econometric models with machine learning models, you can have something like predictive analysis models with causal variables, if that is what you're looking at. Or you may decide to do something like what we call sequential modeling, is a blend of traditional econometrics and machine learning. Or you may just want to strictly go for counterfactual analysis, because over time, I see econometrics being consumed within machine learning. And that is why I told myself, come 2025, I have listed 3 things that I must achieve. I must upskill on machine learning. I must upskill on my usage of R software. I must upskill on my Python software, because you need to keep learning so I can feed my viewers and my subscribers. Machine learning is number 1 on my list.
So can we find videos about machine learning and Python on your channel as well?
Not yet, because I need to first of all have confidence about machine learning models before I can teach it. Whatever I teach on my channel, I have 100% confidence that I've used it in one of my articles. I'm not going to put a video out there that I've not tested. I test my proficiency mostly in my publication by using those techniques I teach, so that I can give you confidence that, look, I'm not just saying it for you to know. I have a paper, I have an article to show that this technique is right there. As of today, I have over 120 articles. Most of those publications, I have used those techniques I've taught on my channel. So whenever I teach those techniques, it's because I have published an article using that technique.
Exactly. So that's how things should be.
And I have confidence that if you use it, you can be rest assured that your teacher, CrunchEconometrix facilitator, has used that technique. And I'll put my reference there, High Impact Journal. So that is another thing that makes my subscribers to know to keep sharing my videos, because they can see the confidence in the voice, in the teaching, and the track record. I mean, she knows what she's doing. How can I say this? It's not really It's not really the order of the day that you're a YouTuber teaching a technique and you're using that technique to publish an article. Not everybody does that, but I decide to do that. I may just decide to write a paper because I want to upload a video. So before I upload the video, I want to make sure that that technique scales through a publishing journal.
Thank you, Dr. Ngozi. And I think this is what one of the things that we need to know, because when you are attaining knowledge, when you are learning from a trainer, when there are so many trainings these days going on, see who's the trainer and see what is the profile of the trainer. See the
Correct.
person who was training you for a particular technique. Has he published any paper on the same technique? Because
correct.
unless you don't have a published work, I mean, like, your training is also question mark. If it was so good,
absolutely.
Why
and
I published it? So
absolutely. Absolutely, doctor. You're correct. Sometimes when students ask me questions like, how do I interpret results from Bayesian and VAR? I've never used Bayesian and VAR before. I tell them I have no idea. There's no point trying to push yourself beyond limit over a technique that you have no clue about, just because you want to impress someone out there. I tell them point blank, I'm sorry, I've never had cause to use Bayesian and VAR. Maybe if I have cause to use a Bayesian and VAR, then I will know how to guide you. Okay, you can check other online resources. That's always my pure and honest answer, because I've never used it. Okay, so once I know how to use a technique, I make sure I first of all put it out there in a published article, so I can give my viewers and listeners confidence that she knows what she's talking about. So yes, I agree with you. I agree with you.
So I think this is a very good lesson for our community as well, that when you are taking a course or you're taking a training, do see the profile of, the trainer. And one of the best ways is to, just Google the Google Scholar profile. This is the easiest technique for you, and see along how many articles that person has. And
correct.
I would like to mention that Dr. Ngozi has just mentioned that he has around 120 publications. So
correct.
Congratulations, and let me edit it, because previously I said 50. So it is
no, it's all right. It's all right.
Congratulations,
all right.
Dr. Ngozi. It is a huge number. You have crossed a century.
It's all right.
The
it's all
next
right.
question is, which is of, very much interest to our community, that please tell us about some, recent advancements or some innovative approaches in econometrics that we can, do for our, upcoming research papers, or what, or in very simple words. If I want to put this question is, what are those techniques that if we apply, we can hit a Q1 category journals?
I need to be careful with that response. Let me just say, econometrics advancement is mind-blowing, to be honest. And this is what I tell students, this is what I tell researchers. What is your research objective? What is your research question? Doctor, your technique doesn't have to be complex for your paper to get published. Simplicity is key. I'm not going to downplay rigorous econometric methodology. No, I'm not going to downplay that. But even with that, I always tell people simplicity is key. If your technique is too complex and people don't understand, it's jargon. It's jargon. Q1 journals, they still publish papers, even with OLS.
Exactly.
If OLS suits your model, they'll publish it. So when it comes to advanced econometrics techniques, you need to relate that to what you are doing. For instance, if I have a time series model and maybe it's a univariate, I just want to look at maybe an arch model, right? So if I now decide to deviate and just move on to something like Bayesian, I'm off course. I'm completely off track. Do you get my point? Or for instance, maybe I want to use, for instance, a simple VAR model. And before I know it, I've deviated because I saw your paper on wavelet analysis and I chose to do wavelength, which has no bearing with my research objective and my research outcome. I mean, it's a misnomer. We can still keep it simple and pass the message across. You may do a paper that suits Bayesian VAR. I may do another paper that suits ordinary VAR. It doesn't mean that your paper is superior to mine. Our scope of research is different. Our learning outcome is different. What you want to gain from your study or what you want your readers to know is different from what I want my readers to know. So I'm always careful using the word advanced econometric skills. Every technique is advanced. To be honest, doctor, I don't know how well to put it. I tell students, use the technique that you know, convey your message. It's about telling a story. You know, I find it funny when people send me, when people comment and said, I use, let me say GMM. I use GMM and I don't know how to interpret my results. And my first question is, why did you even use GMM in the first instance? Why? You need to understand why you are using a technique before you even use it. What is the point of using a technique? Now you have your results and you are clueless about interpreting it. So we can really keep it simple, honestly. I hope I answered your question.
And this is, I also tell my students that come on, you can publish, using a simple OLS, because I am a very, regular leader of American Economic Review. And most of the papers in American Economic Review are as simple as they have used OLS, but they have a wonderful idea. To publish in Q1 journal is not a fancy econometric technique, it's the idea.
Correct.
To work on the idea first.
Correct.
And, we need to get out of this jargon that, apply some fancy kind of econometrics and, then you don't know how to explain your own results.
Exactly.
That,
it's funny. It's very funny.
Journals are not fool. They
Dr. Aslam, I've seen Q1 journals, for instance, panel data techniques. I'm not giving you fables. I'm telling you real life. Q1 journal papers, pooled OLS, fixed effects, random effects, end of story. Exactly. Q1 journal. Baseline model pooled OLS, fixed effects to control for heterogeneities, the random effects for sensitivity checks. That was the end of the paper, Q1. So what are we talking about? It doesn't really have to be complex, to be honest. Just keep your message simple. Keep it simple.
Exactly. So keep it simple and your idea is the main thing. And that should be, the main thing that journals are looking for, the novelty. What is new that you are bringing? Thank you. Coming these remarks from econometric person means a lot. Since I don't call myself having a specialty in econometrics, Dr. Ghouse, who is, hosting our session today, but due to some reason he cannot join. He's an expert in econometrics. So I wish if he had joined today, he would have stressed on this point as well. So that is something that, we should take away from this discussion of today, that please, for God's sake, just stop running after fancy technique. And this is something that is, very much common in Pakistan and countries like Pakistan, India, Nigeria. I'm saying as well because, Dr. Nagozi, we have a lot of students from Nigeria, Uganda, and African countries. One of my PhD student, I would not like to mention his name without his permission. He's from your own country.
Wow.
So when I told him that, a person from your own country, see how much big following she has and see, all these things, he was very much impressed. And one of the lesson that we take, one of the lesson that we take from today's case or today's lecture is that, you can belong to any part of the world and you can still, make your name with your hard work. So Dr. One of the examples, see, going to University of Sussex and, reaching to the top of the world and belonging to Nigeria. So this is a very good story and an inspiration for our listeners as well. So my next question is that many of the young researchers and the students struggle with selecting the right model for panel data or for time series data or any kind of data set. So what is your advice on model selection and interpretations?
Okay, let me start with time series data. it's important that you have enough observations to run a reasonable time series data. If we are going to go by the way of the central limit theorem, at least have 30 years observations, because you are still going to control for lags in time series. Because most times I get people sending me messages on YouTube that I have 20 years observations, and I tell them, have enough time series. Because by the time you control for lags and you put this result in any article for publication, they are going to throw it out. Because by the time you control for lags, you may end up having maybe 17 years observations at the end of the day. Nobody will take your work seriously. So for time series analysis, please try to get observations minimum 30 years, minimum, for you to run a meaningful research, whether it's multivariate time series or bivariate time series, where you only have one right-hand variable and one dependent variable. Or maybe it's a multivariate time series where you have several regressors. Make sure that at least you have enough observations to run a meaningful research, okay? And for time series, it has evolved over time. I put some papers here, some notes here for anyone interested. From the traditional stationarity analysis, autocorrelation, decomposition, forecasting, if you are doing any time series model, well, you can read more about wavelength analysis, deep learning, dynamic Bayesian networks, structural time series models. You can bring in threshold analysis to your time series models. You can consider Markov switching models, state-based models to enrich your analysis. But please make sure you understand the assumptions, because all these techniques, they have their assumptions. They have their build-up. They have their conditions as to why and when you can use them. So I'm speaking to my fellow time series researchers. There's a lot of techniques out there beyond ARDL and VAR that you can use. You can also use instrumental variables, two-state least squares IV or GMM IV for your time series data. But please make sure you understand the assumptions and the conditions by which you can deploy them. It also depends on the software you are using. For me, I don't want to ruffle feathers now. I'm at home with Stata, eViews. Those are my go-to analytical softwares. For R, I can give my, okay, let me say Stata 80%, eViews 70% proficiency. R, I give myself between 40 to 50% proficiency. Python. I'm mentioning these four tools because these are also econometric tools that people use, okay? And each of these tools may not contain these techniques I just mentioned. For instance, you may go to eViews and there may not be any menu for wavelength analysis. Just saying, I don't know. You may go to R and there's no code for you to run dynamic Bayesian network. Just saying. So make sure that whatever technique you want to deploy, the analytical software you are using has it. Because there is no point you want to use Bayesian network and you're on Stata and Stata has no menu or no syntax, if you see where I'm going. So for time series analysis, make sure, number one, the software you are using, you are proficient with it. I have so many expenses, Dr. Aslam. Somebody wants to use eViews and does not even know where to start analysis. And I'm asking, then why do you want to use eViews? Because I do one-on-one consultation. And when they share their screen with me, so I don't often try to be forward. I want to see how far my clients will go. So I'm waiting. So I say, okay, run your analysis, let me see. And the client does not even know where to click on eViews. I'm not joking. And I'm like, but you said you want to use eViews. The person will say, yes, doctor. Proceed. I will now be telling the person, go to quick. And I'm like, my message out there to all of you listening, please make sure you are proficient with the tool, with the software. Next, understand the technique. It doesn't have to be complex. If you want to use eViews, know how eViews can get you your results. If you want to use data, if you want to use R, if you want to use Python, at least upskill your proficiency on those tools. Then consider the technique embedded in those tools. Some of them you need to bring in add-in, some of them you need to upgrade depending on the software that you are using. So that is for time series. Now for panel data. I love panel data analysis so much, and I tell my clients, if you want to bring out the best in panel data, categorize some of your variables. Bring out the distinct heterogeneities in that panel. Dr. Aslam, not all your cross-sections behave the same. If you're having a cross-section of countries, they are not all behaving the same. If you have a cross-section of firms, they are not all behaving the same, or industries. Some are larger than the other, or of hotels. Some are A-class hotels, B-class hotels, C-class hotels. I tell my clients, I know you didn't plan it, but let me make your work better because that's why you're consulting. Create categories. When you create categories, you can now begin to do what I call subsection analysis or sub-panel analysis. It brings out the beauty in your panel data. If you create sub-panel analysis, if a lot of journals will want to publish your paper, let me just keep it that simple, because you will have brought out the different dimensions embedded in that panel data. And for panel data techniques, I'm not going to downplay anyone over another. You can begin by pooled OLS. You can proceed to bootstrap OLS. You can proceed to Driscoll-K PSCC technique. You can proceed to GMM to control for endogeneity. You can bring in IV2 state least squares. You can bring in IVGMM also to control for endogeneity. You can bring in fixed effects to control for heterogeneities. You can bring in random effects. If a hypothesis field, there is randomness in your data. There are so many dimensions to panel data. You can bring in moderation modeling, interaction terms, because in today's reality, linearity has become a debate.
A very good takeaway.
What did you say?
I'm saying that is a very good takeaway from today's discussion.
Linearity. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Linearity is now a debate. That X has a causal inference on Y, maybe because there is also another X variable in that model that the behavior of X1 is conditioned on. If you have X1, X2, the behavior of X1 on Y is probably conditioned on the behavior of X2. So now, if you publish your paper on a non-linearity among 3 or 4 variables, I can guarantee you that you are going to receive some high level of acceptance in your paper than if you just strictly base it on linearity. And it's also applicable for time series. I encourage moderation modeling a lot. It's very beautiful. It's very interesting when you have interaction terms in your model. So you can deploy such techniques. You can deploy mediated modeling or moderated mediation. You can deploy structural equation modeling for panel and for time series. These are still techniques that are hot cake in empirical research. If you put a paper down on structural modeling, they will listen to you if your study objective makes sense and if the technique fits the objective, because there must be how do I put it now? There must be a good alignment between your study. No, I've been emphasizing your research study. What is your question? So there must be an alignment between your question and the technique you want to deploy.
Thank you, Doctor. Now, since we have already, running short of time, so I would open the floor for questions. You are most welcome to open your mic or come on the video, or you can post your questions in the chat. Please feel free to ask questions.
I think there are 4 questions. I don't know whether I can respond to them if you allow me.
Yeah, please. Do you want me to read them for you?
Yes, you can, please.
Okay, so I guess the first question is coming from Afrifa. And she's saying, thank you very much for conveying your message. The second comment is from Mansha, and she's trying to ask if the n is greater than t, then which latest technique can be used on my panel dataset? Okay.
Okay, Mansha, N27, T11. Mansha, you are my kind of person. I love panel data analysis so much. So I'm going to read out some techniques. If I have this panel structure, the techniques I'm going to deploy. If you happen to come across any of my panel papers, you will see that I always start with a baseline technique, pooled OLS. Make sure you start with a baseline technique. And why do I always use pooled OLS? Dr. Aslam, pooled OLS does not recognize differences across the sections. It assumes all of them behave the same. Do you understand me? So I start with that general background. I'm assuming all the countries behave the same. I'm assuming all the industries are of the same size. They behave the same. I'm assuming all the firms in my data are the same. So I always start with that baseline technique. Then I begin to bring in the caveats. What if there is endogeneity? How do I control for that? Then I bring in IV two-state least squares, second technique. And if I want to step it further, I bring in IVGMM, second technique. What if I want to control for cross-sectional dependence? Remember, pooled OLS does not control for cross-sectional dependence. Then I bring in Driscoll-Cray technique, the PSCC technique. Let me even put it in the comment section. The PSCC technique has two variants. So if you're a panel data lover, make sure you try to use PSCC. I just posted it. The PSCC OLS and the PSCC FE techniques are very beautiful if your panel has cross-sectional dependence and if your N is greater than T. So you can see that I have not overrated one technique over the other. The technique I'm using is to control for a problem that may be inherent in the data. Pooled OLS, IVGMM, even the GMM technique. There are 4 variants of GMM technique, and all of them are still relevant. First step GMM, no, first step difference GMM, second step difference GMM, one step system GMM, two-step system GMM. Dr. Aslam, all the 4 GMM variants are honestly relevant. So do not allow anyone to tell you only two-step GMM is relevant. No. I have published papers with difference GMM in the 21st century, and it was published in a high-impact journal. I think I used one-step difference because the data was not robust for GMM, for system GMM, and I put it in the comment section in my work that my data is not robust with system GMM, so I'm using one-step difference GMM, and the paper was published. What am I trying to say? It doesn't have to be overly sophisticated. Once your technique makes sense and it suits your research objective, please go for it. I hope I'm able to answer your question. Let me see her name again. Mansha.
I think you have given a very detailed response. Thank you. Rosie, we'll move to next question with your permission. And
okay.
I believe it is more than a question, it is a comment and a very good comment as well. Samyuddin is saying that sophisticated econometric technique is the inferiority of those researchers who are not confident about their researches. Such researchers are hiding behind their sophisticated techniques, then they apply. Our research should be understandable by a low profile decision maker.
100%, Sammy. 100%. Simplicity is the key. 100%, Sammy. 100%. Totally agree with what you said. It doesn't have to be overly sophisticated, Dr. Aslam, for a non-economics to understand what you're saying. No, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Keep it simple. If Bootstrap OLS will address your research objective, stick to Bootstrap OLS. If the researcher comes back and say, how about endogeneity? How have you controlled for it? Then take it further. When you are revising your paper, put in IV two-state least squares or IV GMM. End of story. End of story. If the person now says, okay, how did you control for cross-sectional dependence? I'm doubting your result. No problem. Bring in the discrete technique. Very simple, PSCC. Is it the OLS variant or the fixed effects variant? Put it there in your revision and submit. You've covered all the basics. These are simple techniques that are still in the front burner of econometric analysis till tomorrow. It doesn't have to be complex.
The next comment is from Dr. Afsha Hamid. Dr. Afsha is from the same department where I work, Department of Economics at University of Lahore, and she
Go
said
ahead.
a very informative discussion. Thank you, Dr. Afsha. Okay, then comes Mansha again. Can we proceed with FMLOS and DOLS in case of n is greater than t? Thank you, Professor. You explained very well. I mostly follow your videos.
Let me respond to Mansha. When it comes to fully modified OLS and dynamic OLS, I've seen it all in empirical research. People use it for very obvious reasons. They use it. But when I want to use FMOLS and DOLS, I use it when n is less than t in my papers. If I want to use any of these variants when n is greater than t, the best I can do is the generalized least squares, the GLS, which Theta has. So I would rather use the FGLS instead of FMOLS and DOLS when my n is greater than t. If I'm going to use FMOLS, then my n must be less than t. That is, I have t greater than n, okay? But you know, every researcher do whatever pleases them. So I'm not going to condemn anybody's work, okay? But just be sure of what technique you are using and you can defend it. That's just it.
The next question is from Afrifa. In panel data analysis, should unit root be taken into strong consideration?
Absolutely. I'm trying to remember the author now that says, if your time series is above 15 years, then take unit root. Why not? But if you have a shorter time dimension in your data, maybe 10, 11 years, for me, I don't take unit root. I just go ahead and run my analysis. But if my time series is extended between 15 to 20 years, that is, I'm having a longer time series, then I need to go and take my panel unit root test. So yes, if you have a longer time series, you should greatly consider taking unit root.
Thank you, Dr. Nagozi. And since we're running short of time, so no more questions, please. I believe that you all have got satisfactory answers. And, you know, more than a talk, it became a very comprehensive kind of a workshop for you people. Thank you again, Dr. Nagozi, for sharing your expertise and inspiring us with your journey, the journey of CrunchEconometrix. You're
Thank you so much.
on, you know, on understanding the right kind of econometrics and the future of econometrics have been invaluable today. So to everyone joining us today, please stay connected with us for more enriching sessions. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you again, Dr. Nagozi. I truly understand the value of your time and I'm really grateful for giving us a lot of time today. Thank you everybody. Have a wonderful day ahead. This is Dr. Aribah signing off until we meet in another section.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Have a great day. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Bye. Thank you.